Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another live. A few seconds late here. I forgot to plug in the mic, which is always a helpful thing to get started. So, as always, we're going to cue into a few really short agenda items and then we're going to dive right into questions. So, let's get started. So, with the title, I wanted to kind of bring in this idea of this hiring squeeze freeze. We were talking a lot about the recession lately and what's going on with the job market, and it's just something that we need to continue to keep the conversation open on. We're going to continue to talk about the pulse and what I'm seeing from a market conditions perspective. Obviously, I'm talking to candidates all the time, and so we just want to keep a pulse on this. And happy to answer any questions involving any hiring freezes, the hiring squeeze, or whatever we want to talk about today. Of course, happy to answer all questions. If you're here for the first time, smash that like button. We love likes. And if you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. I go live every single Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, and then I do new content every other Tuesday. I do want to quickly prompt, and I'll mention this a few times today. I will not be going live next week. I'm going to take that time off. And I think it's only the second live that I'll be missing all year. So the goal is to do in the 40-ish range this year, which will be great. Just probably check out for those last couple of weeks of the year, but trying to do it as often as I can and show up as much as I can. Practiceinterviews.com is our platform. We offer practice interviews. It's one-on-one coaching and negotiation coaching to help you maximize your offer. Lastly, if you've been on these lives before, you know I've been throwing out some discounts on my course, and we'll do that today as well. What did I do for the code today? Oh my goodness, my brain is having a moment. What did I do for the code? There is a discount code, I promise. And if I could remember it, I would tell you. So I'm going to actually have to go in right now. I am so sorry. I actually cannot remember the coupon code that I created for today, which is we're getting off to a little bit of a hiccup. That's okay. That's what going live is all about. Let me just go in really quickly here and pull up this coupon code so I can see what it is, because I forgot what I put for today. I can't believe this. It's so embarrassing. Let's see here. What is our coupon code? Okay. Yes, I would not have remembered that. Coupon code today is FAN, F-A-N in all caps. If you put in that coupon code, you'll get $100 off the course. Sorry for forgetting that. All right, I think that's really it. We're going to dive in. As always, I tend to get a little behind on the questions. I will answer all the questions in order, so there's no reason to duplicate. Obviously, it's not just questions. If you want to leave positive feedback, tip, hints, and we are a positive platform. I try and keep it as positive as possible. I rarely have to bounce people out. I think I've only had to do it maybe 2 or 3 times. So obviously not everything's going to be super positive. I don't want that toxic positivity. We will talk about negative things, but positive tone is always a great way to go. Let's dive in, and thank you again for being here. Okay, recently joined Google as an SC. Thank you. In your initial discussion, you got to know that you can switch to an SE if I can prove your coding abilities in a few engagements. Okay, cool. Wanted to check if that also entails compensation corrections increase, since SEs probably get paid more than consultants. Appreciate your insights on this. Yeah, so if you're moving within a ladder, not always. It's just going to be something that you're going to have to address at that time. But the more technical you are, yeah, typically it's going to compensate higher. I don't know the actual differences, but usually if there's some sort of ladder shift, they don't really do ladders anymore, but if there's some sort of shift there, there should be a comp adjustment. That comp adjustment would come on the base salary. Videos are amazingly helpful. Just had one question. Typically, when is the correct time to follow up with a recruiter after the on-site interview? Should we follow up or wait for them? I typically like 5 business days. If we haven't heard back in 5 business days, let's follow up. Finally got an offer for an L3 suite. Awesome. Thank you for all the helpful tips and information. One question, since equity now gives by a dollar amount, does it mean I get different shares each period? Yeah, so basically the way that's going to work is they're going to take a cash reflection of the equity, a snapshot of the equity average over like the last month. So yeah, there'll be a little bit of fluctuation there. It's kind of funny because in the past it was better to get shares, and now it's feeling like maybe it's better to get cash because the equity numbers have been going down, but it will all work out in your favor, I promise. Thanks for all your videos and time, Jeff. You're still negotiating with Google. Okay, and we'll keep you posted. Smash that like button. Yeah, absolutely. If you like what we're doing, smash that like button. All right, James, continue to keep us updated. I followed up with you on Slack this morning too. That's the other thing. We have a free Slack group. So if you want to join that, practiceinterviews.com, and you can join our free Slack group. Hey, Jeff, recently got your first offer for Google. You're in the offer stage with another company. They won't share any details via email because they don't want me to share the info with Google. Okay. I've communicated with Google, but it doesn't seem to be helping me negotiate very much. How should I navigate this situation? Well, sometimes they like to see things in writing, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much. You use it as a negotiation point, and if they're not moving, say, okay, well, this other offer is better, so I'd really need to consider whether I'd be willing to move to Google. If you're not willing to look at this competing offer, again, remember, very, very soft tone. The other offer is better. You need to continue to push back. Yeah, if they're not going to give it to you in writing, say, you can say to that other company, okay, I think I'm ready to move forward as long as you've negotiated that offer as well. I'd love to see the offer letter. They can't just say, oh, we're only going to send you the offer letter unless you accept. Say, yeah, I'm planning on accepting. I'd love to see the offer letter. And then you can obviously share it if that's becoming the blocker. But just continue to push back, especially if the other offer is good, if you're considering the other company, etc. Good morning. Google Recruiter reached out for a business systems analyst position, and you have a casual call with him this Friday afternoon. Okay. I do not know anything about this position. Words of advice. Yes, we get a lot of BSAs here. So you need 3 really core skills to be great in a BSA role. One, you got to know your systems, right? So you got to have that technical systems lens. You got to have really strong analytical skills. And what makes a great BSA? Strong collaboration, because we can't figure out how to improve, update systems without working across teams. And we're never going to be good at the analysis piece if we're also not collaborating across teams. I know that seems very, very high level. Practiceinterviews.com under our free resources tab. We've got tons of practice questions, including practice questions for BSAs. Accepted an offer at Google and can't thank you enough for your encouragement. You're the best. Awesome. Congrats. That's one of the things for if you're here. I love people coming back, not to give me gratitude, but which I do appreciate, but it's more showing the art of what's possible. That it can be done. It can seem very, very overwhelming. I know that it seemed overwhelming to me as well, but when people come back and they say they got the job, it just shows that persistence and a little bit of effort goes a long way. Congrats. Laid off for non-performance related in the middle of your interview process at Google. How should you handle this? There's really nothing for you to do right now. You don't need to highlight it if you want to highlight it. Absolutely. Remember, everybody understands the current economy and what's going on with the economic conditions, and something that we want to be chatting about today. But do you need to introduce, hey, I'm no longer at my job? No. If they want to hire you, when you put in the application, you might want to flag to your recruiter, hey, during this process, I want to let you know that I was part of a non-performance layoff, and I want to update the application to show that my time of employment at this company ended in June, for instance, right? Because the process might take you into July. Good luck. L4 products, total comp range in Chicago. Well, product operations isn't going to pay as well as other roles. So, you're trying to get as close to the mid-2s as you can in year 1. I don't know that you'll actually get there, but I would be anchoring in the high 2s. Good morning. Thanks a lot, Jeff. I wanted to come in and say thank you. You accepted an offer at G. Awesome. This was a year in making and couldn't have done it without your channel and support. And Awesome and I always prompt to the same thing, right? It's really about your dedication, your effort. And I just love that some of the tips and tricks that I was able to share helped you get there. And thanks so much for letting us know. Good luck. Oh, good question. The time of offer generation, recruiter said, put a placeholder start date and that can change at any time. When I asked to push it by 2 weeks, he said, needs HM approval. It will be fine. Don't worry about it. They just want to go back and confirm with the hiring manager. This kind of stuff happens all the time. They can do this in the background. I had to deal with this all the time. And just, yeah, it's 2 weeks is not going to be a make or break. Okay. Sorry, I scrolled way too far ahead. Okay, here we go. What comp should I expect for Amzn L6 non-tech senior account manager in Sunnyvale? Yeah, so all I'll say is like the trending that I've seen with Amzn is that I don't believe that they're paying as well as they used to, and I will definitely say the same for Meta. I think Amzn and Meta are becoming less competitive from a comp perspective. This is my personal opinion and what I've seen from my clients. I mean, anything that's in the Bay, L6, I'd want you to get into the 300s, but you're going to have to do your research because what an account manager pays at Amzn L6, I'm not really sure, but I would be very surprised if this got out of the threes, and I would be expecting more on the kind of mid to lower end, maybe that 330 to 350-ish range, something like that. And remember, they're going to prompt on the 4-year average because of the year 1 and year 2 sign-on bonuses. I'm seeing year 1 and year 2 come in a little bit higher than years 3 and years 4, but obviously it should be pretty similar overall 4 years. Good luck. What is a recruiter typically looking for in the first call, and what makes somebody stand out? Depends. Recruiters are really all over the place, so it depends whether it has a specific hiring manager or not. It depends on whether it's a really niche down role where the hiring manager has maybe provided questions. They're looking for good communication skills. They want you to show up on time. They want you to listen. They want you to ask great questions. I was more often looking for communication skills. Obviously, sometimes I'd have role fit questions, technical questions if it was a more technical role, but more than anything else, I was just looking for strong communication and being on time. It's just a huge thing for me when people aren't on time, when it's something like going after a role that you really want. It would be great if you could make a video on panel round for CE role at Google Cloud. Okay, I'll always consider video ideas, and I take that really seriously because my audience, I gotta do what my audience says. I do have one kind of sales customer engineering video that I did. So you can look that up and we can throw that in as a resource as well to the timestamps, which usually come out about 5 to 7 days after these lives. But it's something I'll consider. Thank you. Interviewing for CE position next week. How do you know what level I'm joining as? So if I need to negotiate? Well, they should definitely confirm that at the end. I really there's a trick here. If you say, what level are we going after? They're going to be like, that will be decided later. If you say, coming into this role, I believe we're targeting an L6 or L7. Can you confirm that data? Usually when you give them a range of levels and you introduce them, they're more likely to respond. But we're not at the negotiation stage yet. Hey, Jeff, any tips for negotiating with HR if I don't know what level I'm getting considered for? Also, if you can explain compensation structure and year-over-year appraisal. Okay, so let's break this down into smaller pieces. Well, you're not going to ever negotiate. So I just totally push back on all my clients to provide any compensation numbers until your recruiter tells you level. Until they tell you level, don't do it. Just say, I'd really like to understand the level before I share my expectations. And if they're like, no, we want you to share your expectations first, thank you so much. I appreciate that. But without understanding the level, I just unfortunately cannot share numbers. So again, really, really nice soft tone. Can you explain the comp structure? So comp structure, base, bonus, and equity, and sometimes a sign-on. And appraisals Yeah, I mean, you're going to go through 2 reviews a year. The mid-year review, soft review, and then the end-of-year review, which is usually happening. They're starting it in September. You're usually getting that feedback October, November. That's going to be the more robust feedback cycle. Well, there's commonly asked questions for strategic partnership role. Um, a lot of this is going to be about internal and external relationships and collaborative driven. For all the commonly asked questions, there's just quite a few of them. So what I would prompt to is the free resources page on practiceinterviews.com, and we have a question bank. And I know there's some partnership questions, strategic partnership questions there. How do you negotiate if you don't have another offer at hand? Is Google likely to rescind an offer during negotiation, or will they just say best and final? We do not need a competing offer to negotiate. Negotiation is about what we desire, what we want. And when we mention it that way and we stay pretty firm on our messaging, right? So what are we talking about here? Thank you so much. I've had the opportunity to do my research, speak with current and former Googlers or whatever the company might be. And my year one expectation or my 4-year average is X. So we just use very definitive language, but with a nice soft tone. That really will help you set that nice anchor. I have never seen Google rescind an offer because you negotiate. Never. Not once, not ever. Has it ever happened? Probably, but that person was probably not kind. If you come in gracious and kind and try and negotiate for what you want, I just don't see them rescinding offers. I've literally never seen it from my time when I started in 2013 to now, which has been over 9 years. I've never seen it. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. When they say best and final, I always push back. All my negotiation clients, we get to best and final, and I say, we're really close. If we can just push X up to this amount, I'd be willing to sign. So when we get to best and final and we do that last pushback, we say, if we could just get to X, I'd be willing to sign. So it's a confirmation that if they can just move the needle a little bit more, we'll sign that offer. Hi, Jeff. A from Memorial Day. I landed 2 on-sites for Microsoft and networked your way into a Google interview. Thanks for coaching. Awesome. Absolutely. Does AWS compensate higher due to having benefits that are valued lower? Nope. I mean, I don't see that. I don't think that I think Google's probably the most competitive comp-wise and the most willing to negotiate out of the companies. I have a skewed lens. I work with more Google clients, but I do negotiate against not against. I negotiate to get my clients better offers with AWS, Amazon, Meta, Apple, all these companies. But I see Google's flexibility being better. I don't think that they compensate better, just personal experience. And I think over time it's come down. During a hiring manager team match for TPM and G, she explored if I was aware of the differences between TPM and PgM roles and which I prefer. And later on a call with a team member, okay, it's interesting. Later on a call with a team member, he asked if I was open to TPM or PgM. I gave a high-level overview of technical program management capabilities, but I'm left wondering if perhaps they're looking for more of a potential PgM role rather than a TPM seen before asked recruiter. Okay, so yeah, it sounds like they're prompting towards your willingness to maybe drop the T and go into a program management role. I think if you're really excited about the team and you see a really good fit, you can always come in as a program manager and then do additional interviews to show the technical bar. But it's more about your overall interest and engagement in the role. Because program managers make about 10% less than technical program managers. So there will be a comp differential. A lot of it depends on like your current state, where things are at, how things are flowing for you, and will that PgM comp still be great, or will it be a little bit more of a barrier? I hope that helps. To come back to discussing compensation committee, how should I navigate? Will they match my competing offer? Not always. Depends on how much outside of the band. They don't always match competings. They really try their best to, but it doesn't always happen. 2 questions. I can't find a decent example questions for RRK for FSR sales. Any good resources besides Glassdoor? And 2, for the GCA, I've read all your resources. Is there anything else? So I know 100% a free resources tab on practiceinterviews.com that there are absolutely FSR questions in there. You want to think all about how you land a client, how you work with clients, how you work with difficult clients who say they don't have any budget, how you get them to buy additional resources, how do you close a deal, how do you navigate ambiguity, all these things, right? So, but go to that free resources tab. I know 100% we have questions in there. For the GCA, it's kind of weird. I mean, I kind of am the person who's talking about GCA. I just don't see a lot of other resources out there. So for GCA, same 2 items always. Wear the hat of the role. If you solve wearing the hat of the role, things will be much easier, and follow the CFAS method. If you do just those 2 things, you'll be better than 90% of your competition just walking in the door. Hey, Jeff, just had your virtual onsite with G. Feel like first 2 hires and then 1 lean hire. I can't tell you. It's really it's all right. Let's see this. Might add that the recruiter said the phone interview was pretty much perfect with 0 bad feedback. Yeah, but one of the things that I prompted on, and I kind of threw this out in a LinkedIn post, like, I don't know. I don't know that that's what the feedback is bearing. If it's 2 hires and 1 lean hire, maybe. Yeah, I mean, that could be good enough. It might not be good enough. I can't really say. I can't see the feedback, and we don't know that those are the actual scores. And then that first one could have been a strong hire. So I would just say you've put in the work, and now you're just going to have to sit back and be patient, which is the hardest part of the process. Good luck. On-site feedback fairly strong. After that, you chose a team, now waiting for HC, but the response keeps getting delayed for the past 3 weeks. Okay, sorry everybody, my light timer goes off, so I'm just going to start moving around. Anything I can do? Could this be a team issue or general? I don't know. I would hope for a little bit more clarity from your recruiter, and that's something that we can ask for. At 3 weeks, we can say, hey, I'm just looking for a little bit more clarity. It's been a few weeks, and I just want to see if you can give me any insight. You may have asked for it. Continue to ask for it, but yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. Could you elaborate on the microelectronics simulation engineer job in Google? There's not that much information available on any portal regarding Google hiring mechanical engineers. Yeah, so this is where you need to default to 2 things. The job description. I mean, you got to get super, super warm and cozy with that job description and be pulling out all those keywords. I did 2 videos on the job description and how to really dive into it and create practice questions. That's where I strongly encourage you to spend the majority of your time, because there isn't a lot of data on MEs out there. There may be some in the free resources interview questions. I've definitely coached MEs before, but I can't say for sure. But just get warm and cozy with the job description. That's going to be your best friend. In negotiation and team match, HC approved L4 for BSA in Austin, providing an anchor in the mid-3s. The recruiter says it's still high, and they may come back with a lower 3 offers from the comp team. How to best negotiate from here so I can get closer to my anchor? 15 years of relevant experience. Also, recruiter mentioned hiring is slowing, so we may need to move quick. Oh, okay. Good data point for the audience. Thanks for sharing that. That's really important. I don't think you get to the mid-3s for a BSA in Austin. I don't think that happens. I think getting into the low 3s would even be a win there. Continue to push back. When they come back, we try to move on little things. So 2 recommendations. If they come back and they don't say best and final, push on 1 item, usually equity. That's great. And then if they come back at best and final, try and do that final push. Everything needs to be done with a baseline of graciousness and kindness. Things are slowing down. That's interesting. Well, that's a great data point for us. I have not heard that, and they've still stayed pretty robust on hiring. So thanks for that data point, and I hope that helps. Hi from Michigan. Thanks so much. I completed your resume, ready to apply to the UX PGM role and you have a referral. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else. I don't see anything else after that. So absolutely, good luck. Let us know how it goes. Had an initial call with a recruiter, but she subsequently never got back to me. The individual who referred me found out the position had been put on hold. Is Google on a hiring freeze? Okay, now this is why we came into this conversation today. Like, what's going on? What's the pulse? And we'll continue to check this pulse on a weekly basis. So I'll give you any insider information, but this is what I love. The community is going to let us know. Just because a specific position gets put on hold does not mean a larger hiring freeze. This happens all the time. This could be internal nuance things that we just aren't aware of. Sometimes hiring managers will give headcount to another team that has a more urgent need. So I can't really say, but again, we want to keep the pulse on this and see if it's happening more frequently. Also for team match, recruiter mentioned multiple teams are interested and have conversations scheduled. Is that a good sign, and any chances of offer up-leveling if the team match goes great? Recruiter mentioned that if the VP gets involved, there are some chances, though this doesn't happen very often. Yeah, the VP can have some influence over comp, and maybe you can get up-leveled, but it's not always possible, and just having multiple teams with interest doesn't necessarily do anything for comp. Team match phase, HC, L3 role, current economy impact. Team match phase after HC for L3 role. Will the current economy impact phase adversely as it happened in 2020? Again, we're just trying to keep a pulse on it. We can't say for sure. I think there's going to be a little bit of a squeeze coming through just with the economic landscape that we're seeing, but I want us to be pushing the process a little bit more right now, but I'm not seeing huge concerns with Google yet. But again, we're going to keep a pulse on it. Interviewing at G, how does hiring committee really work? Do they look at notes from all interviews? Is there a point system? They do look at feedback from all interviews. If you go to that hiring committee part of the process, sometimes that's happening now, sometimes it's not. It's not a point system. It's more of like a strong hire, lean hire, strong hire, lean hire, leading no hire, strong no hire. So it's more of like their overall pulse and feel, which is way better because the point system was just, there was too much ambiguity in the point system. One person who thought a 3.5, thought it was a 3.5, that same person another person would give it 2.5. So just getting an overall feel, that's how they look at it, but they're going to look at all the notes. Yeah. Hey, Jeff, finally accepted an SFA role in London. Two things helped me: your videos and Team Blind app. Off course, my credentials. Thanks a ton. Wish you health and success. Amazing. I know you've been showing up for a while, so great news. Obviously, everybody knows if you've watched these lives, London is just one of my absolute favorite cities in the world. And I do strongly recommend Team Blind. If you haven't been on Team Blind, great resource. Lots of great comments. Very, it's the tech community driven. So definitely check it out. It could be a really nice backup to levels.fyi to get some additional data. So definitely be utilizing that resource. On-site done with Google. Recruiter says it will be sent to HC. Would HC make a decision this Friday? Can I expect an offer early next week? I have a pretty tight timeline due to a deadline. You got to be sharing that information with the recruiter. I have no idea when HC meets, so I can't say whether it's Friday or not, but you need to emphasize this to your recruiter. Otherwise, they won't be able to push the process for you. Hi, Jeff. Have your first round from Google India on Friday, but I also got selected for Google London. India's interview is already scheduled. Can I do anything to rather get London? I would just say don't give up interviews. That's my strong recommendation. See if you can interview for both. You can do something called dual tracking, which means you're interviewing for a couple roles where they could use the googliness and leadership for both positions. So you can explore dual tracking, but don't give up interviews because things always are happening, as you're seeing with people. Positions can get put on hold, and now all of a sudden you've given up 2 positions. So definitely go through with all your interviews, okay? Currently one of the FANGs and moving to Microsoft. Is it a good switch considering the market condition, hiring freeze, and pending recession while laying off, they say, last in, first out? Yeah, last in, first out is pretty common. But it really depends on your interest in the role. What's the compensation like? What's the need of the position? Like, is it a high in demand position? Those are all things I want you to be considering, okay? At the half hours, I'm going to spend 30 seconds prompting on a few things. If you like what we're doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. We go live every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific and new content videos every other Tuesday. I will be taking next week off from the live, just next week. Practiceinterviews.com, you can get practice interviews, negotiation, and just today, if you use the coupon code FAN for our course, FAN in all caps, there'll be 100 off the course till 11:59 Pacific time today. Do you recommend using a Google Doc with notes to help remember some stuff during the interview? Nope, I don't recommend using that Google Doc. I'm dead set against it. I recommend a pen and paper, cheat sheet on one side. I'm a righty, so cheat sheet here, and then your open sheet here where you're writing things down and addressing your cheat sheet. But I don't like using the Google Doc. I think it totally slows us down and doesn't really help us. Accepted an offer from Google. Thanks for your videos and keep going from India. Awesome. Thank you so much. I know it's getting late and I continue to explore pushing this time a little earlier. I haven't had a chance to do it yet, but I want to be a little bit more time sensitive for my audience in India. So thinking about moving it a little earlier, and that's something that I'll need to figure out and get done soon. And good luck. What type of comp for a sales engine New York? Yeah, so if we don't know level, I'm not going to be super helpful because it varies greatly level to level. So if you have a specific level in mind, just a best guess, that would be helpful. Just got the email. You passed Amazon's first of 3 rounds for an L7 Principal UX. I also passed the first round of Google back in March. Okay. Been waiting on team interest. Is there a way to leverage your Amazon traction to get things moving quicker with Google? Absolutely. Reach out and say, I just wanted to let you know, quick update. I'm progressing forward with an Amazon role and just wanted to keep you in the loop and let you know that I'm still excited about the opportunity at Google. So absolutely, I would leverage it. Cleared on site and had another interview with the department head who is deciding between me and another candidate. If I don't get selected, is there anything I can do to secure another role? Nope. But what you can do is try and create a cadence with that recruiter. Hey, can I check in with you once a week, bi-weekly, monthly? Like, how often can you check in with them about other roles? That's my strong recommendation. Hi, Jeff. Recent joiner to your channel. Okay, just interviewed for a Google Cloud Business Dev role, but I've heard of the cultural shift and exodus in Google Cloud. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else, James. Yeah, so there is a little bit, there's some negative data out there. Absolutely on Google Cloud. I think the product space is great. I love GCP. I love what they're doing. I think Google has some of the smartest people in the world working there. But there has been a pulse that TK, Thomas Kern, who's running the organization, is running it not quite how Google has been run in the past. And so the challenge there is going into an environment that feels different from what Google likes to be, right? So I think the other piece is that this is a rapidly growing business where they're really trying to drive up the revenue as much as possible. And so because they're doing that, it does have a little bit of a different feel, different pulse. I don't think you should avoid going to GCP because of these items. More of the mass exodus was happening at the VP level. There were a lot of higher level leaders who left, and that's probably because they had a little bit more of a touch or pulse on what was happening at those high levels. So yes, I have heard this, and it's something that I definitely want people to be thinking about if they join GCP, but I still think it's a good move. How does a short loop at Google work if you didn't get a previous role, but good enough feedback that the recruiter offered to help for another role? So short loop really depends on, can they get you in front of another position quickly, right? So if we can get you in front of another position quickly, what I mean by that is, like, you can usually repurpose interviews within a year. So a short loop could be like maybe doing more of a technical interview, more of a role related interview, etc. So the short loops, it really depends and will be role specific, but it can be as short as just 1 to 2 additional interviews, depending on previous feedback, new role, etc. Final interview with HM tomorrow. Recruiter says, if it goes well, I'll get an offer. Said no need to prepare, informal team match, but curious of your opinion, focused in on any gaps. Yeah, so no need to prepare. I think that's kind of a ridiculous comment. I would be as prepared as possible. When you get to this stage, we don't take our foot off the pedal. We keep going. You've got to stand. So I think people know I stand for these lives. So I have a little bit more energy, a little bit more pitch, tone. So I want you to stand, have a great answer for tell me about yourself, not your career. Walk through why you're a good match for the role, and great questions. And the biggest thing that's missing in the questions, people are only asking about themselves. Ask about them. What do you love about the company? What do you love about the role? What's the most fun thing you're working on? What do you love about the team and how the team is performing? Positive, positive, positive. Those are my pieces of advice. And remember, this is a wild card. They could ask you behavioral questions. They could ask you GCA types of questions. I've seen everything. So my recommendation is be prepared, prepare like any normal interview, and good luck. Been team matched before the interview, and I'm talking to members to get additional data points as one of the interview has some concerns. What should I expect in the interviews? Yeah, so in the interviews, especially if they're doing an additional interview to cover those data points, all you can do is just prep and practice more. Hopefully you can get some data on what was missing and really put that as your focus area of your practice and prep. I hope that helps. I know it's super high level. If the recruiter offer both video and phone call as their preferred option, you're interviewing for a super senior role, but I'm changing industry, so I have no idea of salary range for my type of role at Google. Okay, yeah, we're not worried about salary range yet, Angela. So I strongly recommend video. Here's why. On the phone, we can't read body language. So you can get those really awkward people on the phone. And let's just take a pause moment. We all have that friend, family member, people who we talk to on the phone and we just can't talk to them on the phone. Like, there's just constant interruptions. It just doesn't have flow. That can happen in an interview. I'd rather have you be looking at them so that you can read each other's body language. Strongly recommend video. For my L3, L4 interview, how do they tell? Is it based on coding skills? Well, yeah, if it's a SUI interview, then yeah, it's going to be based on coding skills and your overall interview performance. With almost 20 years of experience, 20 years of sales and experience, what level will they start out with an approximate comp? Okay, so that's a really wide open question. I would need a lot more data. This is not based on, it's really based on like what the organization needs. Now, 20 years of experience, I would hope that it would be at least a 6 at 20 years. Kind of running into one of these issues now with a client where they're trying to push to a 5 at 20 years of experience. Comp, I don't know your location. So without location, I can't help with comp. Can you please guide or suggest commonly asked questions for a cloud strategist role? Yeah, so again, free resources page at practiceinterviews.com. I would recommend going there, but a cloud strategist is really going to be needs-based. Like, how are you working with clients and customers to uncover their needs? And then how are you working with internal teams to identify trends for like customers, like businesses, like industries, so you can bring that back in the form of a POC or a use case to really help that client have success. So this is going to be heavily communication and collaboration based with that good cloud foundational knowledge. Do you think Google will slow hiring or rush those in the pipeline and squeeze? Again, we're getting some indications just in this live today that maybe they are slowing a little bit. My internal resources have not told me that, right? And I'm constantly trying to get this pulse and ask. But yeah, I think there may be some incentive to push. So if they're pushing, we got to go with that flow, right? So if they push, we're going to just adapt and adjust to the push. Hope that helps. Interviewing at a big tech firm, did interview for a role, and after first round got moved into a different role, different org. Nope. That's actually probably a good sign because they recognized an opportunity where you were a better match, which means they liked you and they want to make sure that they're giving you the opportunity to have the best success in the interview process. Made through HC and looking at L5 program manager role in New York, trying to anchor in the low threes for total comp, but heard back that that might be a bit high. Absolutely not. You definitely want to be anchoring at least in the mid threes. And because as an L5 program manager in New York, we definitely have to be and should be hitting around that 300, low 300s. Okay. So I would be anchoring at least in the mid threes, maybe into the 350s ish, 357, something like that. I would definitely bring the anchor up, let them bring you down. But to get over 300K, program manager, L5, NYC, absolutely. So Google hiring freeze. They were trying to rush my final interviews, but now they're trying to find someone who can even interview. I don't know if we stopped there. Also, can you tell me Google global sales team for ABP side? Okay, so these questions are a little confusing. So let's just try and uncover what we're talking about. So if they're trying to rush, that's probably because they have a need. So that's a good sign, especially for ABPs, because that can move very slow. I don't know about like global sales teams. Don't worry about that. For ABPs, it's more about your ability to organize, prioritize, manage, and really stick to what you think is the best practice, not what's best for them, but just what you've seen have success in the past. Good luck. Technical project manager range in California. So I can just tell you, I think people know they've hopped onto these lives enough. I mean, I'm happy to give anchors and give numbers, but I can't help without specificity because the Bay pays different from LA, pays different from San Diego to Sacramento to remote, technical project manager role. I don't know what the company is. So just way more specificity. And then I'm happy to provide anchors and some other details, but specificity will really help. Typically in your experience with clients, how many times are you going back and forth with the compensation negotiation and what's the typical timeline? My negotiation clients go back more often, right? Because my goal is, I have one goal, it's to maximize comp. So I'm going to keep going back time and time again. Even at best and final, I'll go back. It depends. A lot depends on your recruiter, what their process is, how they like to do it. And it depends on level. Typically, the higher the level, the more times we'll go back and forth. 2 or 3 times is probably the average though. But again, that's if you're doing it on your own. I usually go back more, but it totally depends. There's some unknowns. I've gone back 5 or 6 times. We've gone back once. It just depends on the scenario. Starting a new job last week, not excited about it. And my Google technical interview is the 28th. If things go well, how should I deal with your current company? You burn the bridge, right? And it's tough, right? But we got to do what's best for us. It's like just taking advantage of this one life that we got to live and taking advantage of the opportunity. So see how it plays out. And then what you try and do is you create a really strong transition plan for them. Maybe you help them find a replacement, but eventually we're going to have to burn the bridge, right? I strongly encourage you to see the interviews through and see what happens. Just got an interview for a brand new role in Google. How do I have the compensation range when there's no data? Just go to your target area, whatever that is, like whether it's somewhere, a US city, whatever city it is, go to levels.fyi, look at what a software engineer is being paid and times it by 70%, times 0.7, there's your data. It's usually pretty accurate. There can be a little bit of a differential in there, but that's typically how it works. Sorry guys, I'm my light. Let's see if we can get back on. Okay, cool. My light is being very kind to my waves today, and that doesn't always happen. When should I book an interview one-on-one with you? After I submit my resume for the particular partnerships role, or now when I'm preparing myself for the G process? Please let me know. It's really personal to you. I mean, I like to get as much space and time with my clients as I can, because the more time you have to apply the feedback, the better. I also want to confirm that you are in the interview process so that you're getting value out of our time together. But the more time we have, the better. I will say that I'm going to be on vacation next week, except Monday. So my time will be limited. So if you want to book it, I recommend getting on there. I think I only have a handful of appointments left over the next like 10 days. What's the highest level for a program manager? L7. What are your thoughts on the hiring freeze going around? I mean, it's happening. And I'm seeing like much more heavily at some companies like Meta, for example, huge hiring freeze. And that there was all these whispers about that like a month and a half ago, but it's really happening now. So Meta's been like the biggest one of the big companies. And then of course, we see all the really kind of horror stories coming out of a company like Coinbase that it's unfortunate because their offers were really, really good. Like very, very competitive to the Googles and Amazons and Metas of the world. They were actually winning quite often. Definitely hiring freezes and reductions at startups. So we're just going to continue to keep the pulse on this and check in on it week after week. We just want to make sure that we're getting all the data. And if anybody has data, yeah, throw it our way. Let's see what's going on. Let's get that pulse. In your opinion, UX design L5 comp in Austin. Also, do you think Google is competitive to Stripe, Block, Meta, and UX roles? Stripe. I've been competing against Stripe quite a bit. Stripe's pretty good. Meta's been okay. I'm not familiar with Block, but L5 UX design. The good thing is that design's been a little hot lately. Or it's always been hot, but it's a little hotter now. So I mean, you're definitely talking into the threes for this role, and definitely be anchoring high and negotiating high if you can. In the team match process, is it okay to ask level questions like what are the expectations would be versus L4, L5, and discuss the path to getting promoted? Nope, not in the team match phase. I would not be talking about level or promotion in the team match phase at all. To me, that would be a huge red flag. You want to be more focused in on what success looks like in the role, not trying to move to the next level. I don't think that would go over well. So I'm glad you had the question. Been waiting 2+ weeks to get a date and time on a virtual on-site suite. Recruiter said they would look into it, but haven't heard anything. I wouldn't be concerned yet, but I would continue, Hank, to just check in, okay? Sorry, I scrolled way ahead. Any major differences, culture, comp, etc., that you've noticed between roles in software side versus hardware side? Not particularly. I know that's not a great answer. How do you deal when the interviewer has a personal opinion of your answer in the G&O? Acknowledge. You want to acknowledge and thank them for their feedback or insight. Say thank you. I hadn't looked at it that way. I really appreciate your insight. So we take it super, super positive. We're just full of bad interviewers out there that want to give their opinion. So not really like everybody has a different lens. That's the whole point of a G&L interview, is that you're supposed to be giving your lens, your insight. So when this stuff happens, it's just unfortunate, but we take everything positively, right? So for instance, I get a lot of some negative feedback on YouTube, not a lot of it, but some. And I just always respond with the fact that, thank you so much for your feedback. What could I have improved on, or any different way that you want me to answer that? How can I help? So we take it all positively. Now we're reflecting back now, so I know it's not super helpful, but I hope that feedback helps. Completed all 6 interviews, done with the team call, got a match. Initially, recruiter told send package to HC, but a week later he said he didn't send it to HC and asking for more interviews. Is this normal? I mean, yes and no. So it's not totally normal. But if they want more interviews, it means they're looking for a little bit more data. I would really press on what was lacking and the areas you need to focus in on to improve. Good luck. Started the SE, GCE process, and you're on the fast track. What does that mean? Fast track is good. We don't often hear that. So it just means that maybe they're trying to push the process because maybe they know there's a little bit of a freeze coming up. I feel like I'm going to do some check-ins this week and just see what's going on. I didn't have a chance to do that this week. But getting fast tracked is great. They might just have an urgent need. So we don't really know. Is it common to have an RRK cloud strategist role with GCP interview slotted first with the hiring manager without having the other two rounds, GCA and googliness and leadership fixed? Recruiter told me that the outcome verdict of this first one will make them decide whether they schedule the other two. Is this normal? Yeah, absolutely. You've got to pass usually initial interviews to move on. I'm not going to give you all the interviews. I could be wasting the time of the other interviewers. Not in your case because you're here and you're prepping and you're going to crush it, but usually we're passing some sort of initial bar. Usually that's probably like 80 to 90% of the cases. We got to get through that first interview to move on to others. It depends, but that's more typical. With housing prices in NYC skyrocketing and 40x rent requirements, do you think Google will pay enough to live in NYC? Will I have to live in Jersey or upstate? Well, this is kind of a funny, I love this topic and I'll try not to go too long because I know I'm doing okay. I'm about 20 minutes behind. It's pretty normal. But I like the New York market from an affordability standpoint way better than the Bay. I think it's much easier to get away from the money in New York. Like, yeah, you can live in North Jersey. You can take the path into the city. It's an hour commute and you're paying way, way less. Living in New York City will always be an expense. So if you're willing to live in a smaller space like a studio, but that's still going to cost you $3,000 or $4,000 a month. So lots of things to consider, but I like the options in New York to go in different directions to get away from the money, where I think in the Bay, it's actually harder to do that. Is onsite feedback valid for 1 year, or it's only after HC approves that packet is valid for 1 year? Repurposing interview feedback in any facet, usually within a year. Yeah. No, obviously it just depends so much on the next role you go after, but usually there can be some repurposing after a year. It doesn't have to be after HC. Good question. Currently interviewing for G, a PM role. You have a total of 13 years of experience and 8.5 years of PM experience. What level is to be offered, and is it negotiable? I can never tell you for sure. This sounds like an L5 though. Can you negotiate level? Yeah, if you absolutely crush the interviews and you want to be pushed up to a 6, it's a conversation you can have. Got asked for one additional technical phone interview. Recruiter said it was very similar to the initial coding interview. Anything to worry about? Yeah, I mean, they obviously, something was missing. I want you to really do some self-reflection. This is really important. Where could you have done better? Push back on the recruiter to say, hey, are there any other areas where I could have improved? Just push. Something was missing a little bit, but they like you enough to give you another opportunity. So it's kind of the middle ground. Hi, I like the highs. Hi, Jeff. I'm done with all technical rounds, including GCA. What should I expect now? Will there be an HC round? Ask your recruiter. Not all candidates are going to HC anymore. So we don't know. So you're going to have to ask them, but good luck. Google, L4, SDE, do you need to ace all rounds, or do you have a chance with one terrible round? There's always a chance, and the terrible round can potentially be redone if all the other rounds are good. Remember, you're going after Google, so it makes it harder if you don't have a great round, but if all the other rounds are good, are they going to give you another chance? Yeah, absolutely. They should give you a chance to redo. So we're just going to have to wait and see. Good luck. Does HC make decision right after the meeting? How soon can one expect an offer after HC decision? They don't make a decision right after. They make a decision during. So they say yes, no, or it's a hold and they want to do more interviews. So you should hear back right away. How long the offer process takes, anybody's guess. It could be a week, it could be 3 weeks. Just depends on how much your recruiter pushes, how many times you go back and negotiate, how busy comp is, lots of X factors there. What kind of comp for PMs in AI? What kind of comp for PMs in AI, ML, deep learning? Yeah, so again, without a level and a location, yeah, I just can't answer that question, unfortunately. I can tell you that AI and ML and deep learning will get you paid more. Thanks for the great content. Is there a hiring slowdown around July or August? When do new jobs get posted, in September or later normally? New jobs are getting posted all the time. I don't really see a summer slowdown. I rarely see slowdowns, with the exception of usually end of year into early the following year. So I find like December timeframe, December, January, February tend to typically be the slowest months from my experience. What would be the best comp to anchor in CAD and level for TAM role for Toronto location? Again, no level, or sorry, yeah, if I don't know the level, I don't give comp, and I usually don't do it in CAD just because I'm a little bit more comfortable in USD. For the earlier question about being laid off, non-performance related, and your advice to bring it up later, do you think it's likely they'll rescind the offer and not send it to HC because of it? 0% chance because of that. It's a non-issue, right? Like, just don't worry about it. I really don't want you to be concerned with something that was totally outside of your control. It's a non-issue. This happens all the time. Told by HR last week that she should be able to share internal review results by this Monday, but haven't heard anything from her. Is this a bad sign? Should you follow up with her? Yes, you should be able to follow up with her. Yeah, they're not going to share all the details. They should just be sharing at a high level, but just follow up. Okay. Comp recommendation, L5, TPM, Seattle. L5, TPM, Seattle. I would hope in year one, I actually had one of these really recently as a negotiation client. I think like L5 year one, 350, 360. So I would definitely be anchoring. I would probably anchor right at the top of the threes. I want you to anchor 394, 397, something like that. Recently joined your channel and found it very helpful. You're about to have your on-site with interview with Google, BSA. I rarely see that role specifically called out. BSAs, like, I definitely need to do a video on this. I've been requested so many times, and it's definitely in my list of ones to do. It's going to be a pretty robust video, so I'm going to need to set aside a full day to do it. But strong systems knowledge, which means you need to have some technical knowledge, strong analytical knowledge, and strong collaboration skills. Those are the three keys that I see to having success in these roles. Saw your video on cheat sheet. However, 4 of my 3 remote interviews, Google Tech, GCA, where they provided a Google Doc link to take notes so the interviewer sees everything. Don't use the Google Doc. It's a total waste of time. The only time that I recommend that we use an online tool is to use Google Draw when we're doing solution or system design. That Google Doc will absolutely slow you down. You just don't use it. Cheat sheet here, pen and paper here. They're not going to say you have to write all your notes on the Google Doc. I've never heard of anybody saying that. So you just use a pen and paper. It'll be helpful. Comp recommendation for L4, L5, Ops Manager in Mountain View. Ops Managers are definitely going to be on the lower end for cost of labor. So L4, 225, 230, L5, 275, 280, something like that. It might be a little bit lower. With a good negotiation, you can probably get around those numbers in year one. Nominated for a few awards, but the result would be out later by the end of the year. Is the nominations worth mentioning in the resume? I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think you need to, but if you feel like you want to, sure, can't hurt. What point should I give to the recruiter to represent my excitement to HMs for L3 Suite? Recruiter told HMs vary, and I won't relocate as per their past experience with other candidates. A little confused by the question, but I just want you to stand. That will help your pitch and tone. Really ask them positive questions about themselves, the team, and then lastly, a good answer for tell me about yourself, and expect anything. These are absolute wild cards, and we just need to be ready for anything. Sometimes we just cannot relocate. Obviously, I want people to strongly consider it. I did it. And, at the time I moved to the Bay and my wife stayed in San Diego. I mean, that's what we needed to do to make it work, but we didn't have kids. We also rented. So we had a lot of items that just made it much easier for me to relocate. So I want to mention that. I want you to have openness to it, but not all of us can do it. So just try and stay as positive as you can and follow those tips. Okay. Always on the half hours. It looks like we're about 20 minutes behind. I'll start to speed up a little bit to just make sure we get everybody's questions answered today. So practiceinterviews.com, interview coaching, negotiation coaching. If you type in the code word FAN in all caps, FAN, $100 discount just today on the course until 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. If you like what we're doing, smash that like button. And if you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. Can I use the PM framework for a sales ops role? If no, what do you suggest? Yes, obviously the program management framework video that I did, those items and concepts cast a wide net. I also recently did a video, we can throw this in as a resource, the strengths component. Framework should be strengths focused. So for me, if I was going to introduce the program manager framework, there's a couple of items that are my strengths, I believe. One is data. I'm very good at looking at data, parsing data. It's a strength of mine. And then I would actually add communication in. That's probably my number one item. It should be my number one item. So I would be a little bit more strengths focused, but use those concepts. Obviously, goal, timeline, budget, resources, risk, stakeholders, all of those are going to be critical. What does it mean if the recruiter wants me to do informal coffee chats with team members? It's a good sign. They don't set up informal coffee chats with team members if they don't like you. Enthusiasm, positivity, excitement, all those things. Good luck. Is a DA/BA still a good area for new graduates to focus in on, considering the hiring freeze trend in tech? Any recommendations for new graduates? Yes. Don't go away from your strengths. It's no different from new grads than it is for anybody with industry experience. If you're being put in front of opportunities where you have a strong skill, you're going to have opportunities. So no reason to step away from the areas that you're most interested in. Previous SE position. For my previous SE position, which 19 plus Eng, L6 in New York comp. Sales engineer, L6 New York comp. What should you expect? It's the last SECE New York, right around 400, maybe into the low fours. I'd be anchoring mid fours. Not really a risk of anchoring too high. Sometimes, I'll get a negotiation client and they'll be like, I already anchored at X number. I'd rather have it be big than small. Now, remember with anchoring, this is company specific. If you're going into a big tech company, anchoring big, no big deal. If you're going into a startup, anchoring big can remove a job offer, right? So know your audience. But anchoring big with a big tech company, totally cool. As long as you're gracious and kind, no worries. Your course is great. Still working through it. You purchased it a couple months ago and it helped with your Amazon interview. Awesome. Thank you. Do you have any recommendations for Amazon's deep dive design interview? I already passed that for Google, but Amazon's is slightly different. Yeah, so when we talk about design, and remember, I just want to really highlight that this is my personal opinion, but I use CFAS for design. So we get this design question, whether it's system or solution design, and we clarify. There is going to be ambiguity. Then the framework is more like our high level design. It's like the visual I have is it's like boom, 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 and boom. And then we say, okay, of those 4 areas we can start, I think we should start with X. What do you think? And then you start to build those assumptions and solutions. So I think CFAS actually works for design, and that's my strong recommendation. Not everybody loves that approach. And obviously, if they give you visual tools, anytime you can use visual tools in a design interview, it's going to be helpful. I know that's super high level, but I hope it helps. Is GCP support comp less compared to Google comp of hiring same level? I mean, any support kind of role, it depends on what kind of support role, will likely be a little bit less, but it kind of really depends on the roles we're comparing. Recruiter reached out from AWS for an SD2 role, interested in AWS for a bit senior role, years of experience, 11 non-FANG, considering current industry timing, any suggestions? Talking's not taking. This comes from one of my mentors that I had. His name is Ron, and Ron used to always highlight this to me, to highlight to candidates, and I still have this messaging. I don't say it very often, but I always want you to engage in these conversations. If they're coming and reaching out to you, let's talk. Let's see what's out there. Let's see if there's an opportunity. So it will be, in the end, a great learning experience, if anything else. So I strongly encourage it. Is TPM a higher level than a PGM? It's same level, but it's about a 10% comp differential, 10% more for the T than just a straight program manager. HC approved, and now in team match, it's been a week and you don't have any matches. Should you be nervous? I have an Amazon offer that's expiring soon. So Eric, you got to go and just push and say, I'm really excited, but this Amazon offer is expiring. Worst case scenario, you might need to accept that Amazon offer. Continue to stay in touch with Amazon and push in little buckets. You don't want to push and say, I need 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Push in little buckets, but waiting a week for a team match is not long. You just need to emphasize with your recruiter the urgency, okay? Good luck. Yeah, let's go ahead and throw that out there. If anybody else is stuck in the HC phase, let us know. Sometimes that can be recruiter driven a little bit, but let's see. RRK is tomorrow for me, enterprise architect. It'll be my first interview facing 2 people at the same time. Any advice? Well, that was a lot more challenging when we were physically present and we had to address person A and person B. But now it's getting much easier to do it via video. So just address the person that's speaking to you. Let's see if we can get the slide on. Just address the person that's speaking to you. Really focus in on answering one item at a time. But it is a lot easier to do it via video. So just focus in on answering the person's questions and directing your answers towards the person that asked the question. Receive the interview round email for Google, but still no date. Can you help to do what's next? Dropped a note to HR, but no response. Drop another note and say, hey, just wanted to provide my updated availability. Provide as much availability as possible, and that's a great way to segue and see if we can get any feedback. Always be proactive. Originally applied to BSA manager role, L5, L6, and Sourcer sent me info to HM for a similar BSA role, L4, L5. Now about to have my on-site interview. Can you still be considered for the original role? Maybe. It's less likely, but maybe they really see some strong manager skills and they repivot you. Just crush those interviews and then see how it goes. What is the general interview trend like? First interview, then GCA? There is absolutely no trend. It really depends on the role. Sometimes it can be about availability, all those things. So yeah, some roles have some trends, but really have to ask our recruiter that question. Good luck. Thank you for all the guidance. Got a verbal approval for an L4 SAP BSA role in Sunnyvale. HR is asking for a range and you don't have much data points. How should I be anchoring for? I'd definitely be anchoring into the 3s. We just got a data point. Somebody was saying earlier that they were going to get around 300, which sounded really high for an L4. Definitely be anchoring into the 3s. I wouldn't anchor anything probably less than in the 330s at least. I applied for a sweet early career campus, interviewed and approved by HC for ECI program, but it's full for 2022. Recruiter told me to reapply in 6 months for 2023. Well, I need to redo interviews. It probably depends on the timing. Maybe, maybe not. I am very less familiar, even though I hired SWEs at Google. I didn't hire early career. I hired more industry professionals, so I don't know exactly, but usually interview feedback can be repurposed if it's less than a year. So even if all of it can't be repurposed, maybe some of it can. About to have a virtual on-site interview, 5 sessions, RRK, solution design, PM, GNL, etc. for BSA role. Is this normal? Is there a team match involved for a specific BSA role? I don't know. If you're speaking to the hiring manager as part of the process, then maybe it's for a specific role. Team match really depends on how specific. So I can't answer that, but is it normal to have all of our interviews in one day? Yes. And it's kind of like, now we're like too comfortable with this idea that the interviews will be all separated because we're in a virtual environment. I mean, before the pandemic, it was very normal to have 4 or 5 back-to-back interviews. It's hard. And my recommendation is when you provide availability to say, I don't mind breaking it up over a couple days because that's to your benefit, but not strange to do them all in one day. Good luck. I don't know the level getting offered to me, but I've given my desired compensation. Should I ask level now? You can always ask level, but I would not have given compensation beforehand. Remember, we can't move backwards. We can adjust our numbers if we find that the data doesn't align with the numbers we gave. It makes it harder, but here's the trick. I've been implementing this trick a little bit lately, so let's talk about this trick. Sometimes we maybe anchor too low or we give too low of a number, and then we get to that compensation stage and they're like, we were able to hit your number, and you say, I'm sorry if I wasn't really clear. That target compensation was my base salary expectation. So that's a way to go back and help with your anchor a little bit. Just a little trick that I've been using lately. Great LA area, L6, TPM, remote FANG, 15 years of experience, 350 to 370 compensation, a fair range to negotiate an offer. Yep, that seems very reasonable. And I would say it depends on the FANG, but I would say 350 to 370 for an L6 TPM is low. For LA, I'd be trying to get more into the mid 4s, at least mid to high 4s. TPM is super hot for L6. Like a L6, I'm trying to like L6 TPM Bay. I'm trying to get my clients at Google at least 550 in year 1, if that just gives you some context. What is the cool-off period after getting rejected from second round virtual on-site interviews? 6 months or 1 year? Usually they like up to a year, but I would be touching base with your recruiter after about 6 months to 9 months. Very little salary information for Sydney, Australia. What sort of total comp? L6, customer or partner engineer? Those are comping really well. So one of the biggest data points, because I'm not as familiar with Australia, I've only had a couple of negotiation clients down there. Look at what software engineers are making in Sydney. And I would times that for customer or partner engineer times like 0.75, 0.8, and that will give you a very, very good reflection of what an L6 will pay. Good luck. If your interview feedback is strong, is there any case for skipping HC? This is becoming very common. If your interview feedback is a clear-cut hire, they're skipping HC. They don't want to take clear-cut packets to HC anymore. So yes, very strong likelihood. What kind of comp for L4? For Google L4, Kitchener, Waterloo? Can't answer that question if I don't know the role. Thanks for all your knowledge. Finally received your Google offer. Do you think you can negotiate the comp when coming from a role where overtime played into your total? You can always negotiate. Always negotiate comp before. Okay, yeah, always negotiate your offer. You can negotiate just because that's the number you think you deserve, right? You really don't need a lot of validation to negotiate. If you could work from anywhere in the world, where would you go? Great question. Again, I think the story that most people know is that I was very close to landing a role in London, and London was like a very highly desirable city for me to work in because I saw it as a great jumping off point to go to all parts of Europe. But I mean, I would work anywhere. I mean, I've been to Singapore. I love Singapore. I've been to Sydney. I'd work from Sydney. I would have worked from anywhere. I think all the offices are cool, unique. Obviously, I got an opportunity to work in the hub in the Bay. And it's kind of ironic, this question, because as I was going to bed last night, I was thinking about the San Francisco office. And like in the San Francisco office, they have this little like speakeasy, hidden speakeasy, and like just how cool the offices are. But London was kind of my like big place that I wanted to go. I also that Dublin office is really cool too. Very, very diverse. People coming from all different places. I think that would be a cool office too. But yeah, I mean, if I could go back and do it, I probably would have actually taken a London offer and moved, even though the comp would have come down significantly. Thanks for the question. Thank you, Jeff. What question would you recommend to ask the recruiter to understand what's happening at HC approval and why it's taking so long? Recruiter, what's happening with HC and why is it taking so long? It's really hard for me to understand, being external to the organization, what's going on. And obviously I'm very excited about the role. So can you provide any additional clarity that could, like, put yourself in my shoes? Again, very, very soft tone, but we just want to be very direct and just say, I'm just trying to understand because I'm not internal to the organization. So it's really hard for me to understand. I hope that helps. You're awesome with all the live session. Thank you. Absolutely. You're welcome. Comp recommendation, L4, ML, software eng, and okay, L4. So in Waterloo, I'm a little less connected to Waterloo, even though like I know the market. I mean, I would think USD, I would have to be talking in like the mid twos at least, maybe higher. Again, you should have some data on levels.fyi on Waterloo and what it's paying. But remember, for ML, we always can drive that up a little bit. AI, ML, Eng, hottest role in the world, along with product managers. Those are the two hottest roles in the world. So you should be able to get a really good call. I hope that helps. Do candidates who already passed HC but do not find a team right now get higher priority when Google gets more headcount? Technically they should, but maybe not. Don't have any internal references. Will this be an issue? And do they typically contact external references? Not having internal references, that's something we can't control. I didn't have any. I guess I technically did, but maybe somebody I didn't want to use, looking back. But they don't always contact external references. Usually at the higher levels they do, but at the lower levels, like 5 and below, typically not. Are areas like ML or research teams predicted to have bigger hiring freezes than SDEs? I would say the opposite. I would say if you're in ML and ML research, that the likelihood of a hiring freeze is less. AI and ML are going to be the hottest positions for the foreseeable future. The more we can automate, I was going to say the more we can automate, the better, but that's not necessarily the case, but that's the way these companies see it. Have an interview with Google for ad sales, SMB sales in Ann Arbor. Any tips? What's the compensation? Can't tell you comp if I don't know level, but I can tell you advertising sales, SMB, you're going to focus in your assumptions an SMB target audience. Make sure you're getting very narrowed down. Don't just say an SMB client. An SMB client that sells women's yoga pants. Like, let's get specific. Let's create a visual so that then we can solve for that specific retail industry. So get very specific in your answers. Practiceinterviews.com, free resources. I should have some good questions there. Any sales questions that you can look up. L4 comp reference of mid twos for product ops in Chicago. What should you anchor at for L5? I mean, I would anchor in the threes, so products, I mean, you're going to get paid like $265, $270 in year one. So anchoring into the 320s, 330s, something like that. You are welcome. How do you recommend prepping for PM interviews? 6 years of experience, 3 as a PM. What level should you target? It's probably L4. I think most people know tryexponent.com. Tryexponent.com. You should be looking at their practice questions. You should be looking at their videos. The only two areas where Steven and I, one of the co-founders, slightly don't see things the same way. Just don't always expect a responsive interviewer. Their videos are great, but sometimes the interviewers are always responsive, and I would say that's not always the case. And then they don't coach a lot on frameworks, but I think for us normal, average human beings, we can get lost without the framework. So those are my recommendations. But try Exponent, is a fantastic resource. If the recruiter hasn't responded post on-site follow-up, would it be okay to send an email to an interviewer who provided their email address? Yeah, if it's been like 3 weeks to a month, yes. But if it's only been like a week or two, I would keep trying to go through the recruiter. Only use that as a last resort. But if it's been 3 weeks, a month, and you followed up 3 or 4 or 5 times and they haven't responded, go to the interviewer. Absolutely. Interviewing for an AS role in Dublin, you have 9 years of corporate experience. Well, corporate experience may not always be role specific, but yeah, 5 probably. And then if it's not as role specific experience, maybe a 4. Interviewing TPM and during match, hiring manager offered 2 potential roles, TPM and PgM. You're more interested in the PgM task, but HM mentioned PgM members moved to TPM. So yeah, I think, Ling, we might have been handling this before. Thanks for the positive feedback. TPM will pay 10% more. So just something to keep in mind. But if you're more interested in program management and not totally driven by comp, totally cool. PPM level 6 comp is higher or lower than TPM? 10% higher for TPM typically. Do you think Google Cloud Platform Support Org is not really Google? It is Google, but yeah, there's some small, well, I don't know how small. Maybe they're small, maybe they're big, but there are some cultural differences because of how it's being run from the top. But it is Google for sure. Thanks so much for your videos. Moving me forward at Google, pass recruiter screening and HM interview, moving to the next rounds. One anchor for strategy ops, lead remote role, New York base L5. Any non-tech L5 in NYC, whether it's remote or non-remote, should be, you're really pushing into the 3s. Even if the total comp year 1 ends up in like a right around 300, I'd be anchoring in the mid 3s. I went through on-site round recently. I witnessed my interviewer facing difficulty taking notes. I got rejected email yesterday, unsure if this could be of missing details of interview notes. How are they having difficulty taking notes? That's I'm not sure how you would know that unless they had a quizzical look on their face like I do right now. But you can mention that to your recruiter and say, it looked like they were struggling to keep up with my answers, which could be a pace challenge. But you can always give feedback to your recruiter. But yeah, this will be a tough one to overcome, unfortunately. Just a follow-up question. I haven't given a salary expectation. How much does an account strategist make in Dublin? Yeah, so account strategist, L5, Dublin, it's getting better. Kind of probably into the 130, 140, 150 range with euros. And remember, they're going to do the equity in USD, something like that. Dublin's gotten better. I've seen a huge uptick in what London and Dublin are paying, so I wouldn't have given you those high numbers recently. 130, 140, something like that. Have 1.5 years of experience as an SDE, received a call from Google Recruiter to schedule an interview. What kind of clarification should I make from them about the interview process? What does the interview process look like? At 1.5 years of experience, this is going to be 3-4 coding rounds and a behavioral round. That'll be the setup. If the title says head of / director, which level should I expect? Okay, great question, Angela. So head roles, typically, if we're casting a wide net, like 80 to 90% of head roles are an L7. Sometimes they can be a 6, and sometimes they can be an 8. And a director level role is an 8. So maybe what they're saying for this role is, hey, like you could come in as a head as an L7 or director as L8. Okay. Hey Jeff, is TAM and TPM role for L6 Google Toronto both the same level, or is there a salary difference? There is a huge salary difference between a TAM and a TPM. TPMs get paid way better than TAMs, and my 2 cents on TAMs is that they're not comped appropriately. They're much lower. So if you have the option and you care about comp, I'd go after a TPM role. What do you do if you're stuck in a question or genuinely freeze up and don't know? It's a finance role in London. So we're trying to look at what is the bigger overarching theme of that question, right? Is this a question that's leaning towards collaboration or strategy or process or technology? And we say to our interviewer, let's go with our favorite fake interviewer, our best friend, Sue. And you say, look, Sue, I think what this question is getting at is collaboration. I may not have the best example, but I have a really good example of collaboration. Is it okay if I present that example? Sue is rarely going to say, no, you need the perfect example to this question. Usually they'll go with it. Look for the overarching theme. What is the question asking? How are you going to do that? You're going to breathe. Nice deep breath. Slow down your brain. Really take it in. And then you're going to take a minute to think through it. And then if you can't come up with something, you'll try and find the larger theme and introduce that to your interviewer, Sue. Okay? Absolutely. You're welcome. I'm in team matching phase for Google since Feb. Tried a couple of teams, but they always picked an internal candidate despite giving me positive feedback. How to win versus an internal candidate. This is such an interesting item because I kind of find that externals can beat out internals, and I always felt like that wasn't right because I was a TVC and I had to go TVC FTE. There is really no method to the madness. It was probably just a little bit of bad luck in terms of them having a little stronger alignment. Just continue to stay positive, continue to stay on top of it. If they're keeping you in the team match stage at this phase since February, it means they like you. Switch up your approach. Maybe stand up, more energy, more enthusiasm. Work on the tell me about yourself answer. Work on asking better questions. Just continue to work on the team match process because it sounds like they like you. After getting Google offer and accepted, the recruitment process had suddenly been revoked due to a business reason. Have you encountered this situation? Occasionally. It's pretty rare. We're definitely talking in the less than 1%. You really need to get a pulse of what the best next steps are and whether you should be pivoting towards another role. If they feel like it'll repivot in 3 months, can you hold on to your current position for 3 months or 6 months? You really want to be working with that recruiter to find out what the best next steps are. I'm really, really sorry to hear this happen, but there's going to be something else for you. Okay. So just stay super, super positive. I know that's so easy for me to say because I'm not in your shoes, but if you stay positive and reflect positively, it will really, really help. Okay. Currently in the team matching phase, how can you handle having a recruiter who is very disengaged and does not keep me in the loop on things? L4 PgM. It's really hard. It's really, really hard. So you just come in with continued graciousness and kindness, and we can ask them, how often should I be checking in with you? Once a week, once every 2 weeks, once a month. I want to work with you to make sure that I'm just checking in a timely manner and not bothering you too much, but keeping a pulse on the opportunity. And then we're going to get in front of everything. We're going to always be providing our availability, what's going on in our world, et cetera. Those are a few ways to get around it. But I'm sorry, this is really tough. They can get very, very disengaged during the team match phase. 4 weeks since the final on-site, still no result. Recruiter said they're still interviewing more candidates. It's both positive and negative. It means they like you. There's enough to hold on to you, but they didn't see enough of a signal that they don't want to interview others. All you can do is continue to check in. I know that's not a great answer, but that's all you can do. RRK interview tomorrow for an AM, large customer sales in Dublin. Yeah, really be thinking about large customers. What are those client needs? Maybe creating some assumptions that you're working with a large customer that's unhappy with utilization, working with a large customer that wants to purchase additional services but doesn't have a budget. Just be thinking about all these scenarios that you might be getting into, especially for the open-ended side, and then really great times of where you've done great client work and where you've worked with great internal teams. The biggest missing piece of these externally facing interviews is that we're forgetting about the internal teams, and that's such a big part of your success in these roles. Good luck. Can you negotiate level as well based on your years of experience? What would you suggest with 15 years of experience, L5 or L6? I mean, I'd love to see you come in as a 6. You can't negotiate it. If you get to the end of the process and they pick you as a 5, you can say, if I did a couple more interviews, would you up level me to 6? That's all you can do. But you can't really negotiate it unless there's a willingness for them to do more interviews, consider it, etc. But you can always ask. Brandon here, I asked your recruiter what level I was being considered for, but she said decision comes later based off your interview. Is this normal? Interviewing for a product manager, 4 years of experience. 4 years of experience in product, this is definitely going to be an L4. This is why we give them recommendations. I feel like I should be interviewing at an L4, L5. Can you confirm? It's just so frustrating that they won't have a more clear, honest dialogue. It's unbelievable. It frustrates me as much as it frustrates you. So my best guess, though, with your years of experience, is an L4. Should I be pushing back if my average total comp is low, but my year 1 comp is close to the anchor? 4-year average, your 4-year average doesn't mean anything. You rarely make less than year 1. The 4-year average is just a sanity check. It's just a number to look at the data and analytics of it. Don't worry about the 4-year being low. If they came close to your anchor in year 1, that's a good sign. You can always push back and ask for more. It's year 1. My anchors are always year 1 anchors. Always. Because I tried to go with 4-year average for too long, and this just messed recruiters up. They were messing up offers. They were messing up everything. So we had to go with their language. And if you're going in with Google, you're going in year 1. If you're going in with Amzn, for example, you're going to go in at a 4-year average. Meta, 4-year average. But Google, you got to anchor on year 1 because that's all they're looking at. You're welcome. Good comp, L4, SE, CE in London. Oh, I just recently did one of these and no. What did we do? London. I would be anchoring into the 2s and trying to really hit right around 200 in year 1, total comp, okay? So when I say that, I'm converting everything in my head to pounds, right? So I'm taking that USD equity, moving it into pounds. You should be able to get into the high 1s in year 1, but definitely anchor into the 2s. What is a good course for someone not from a sales background interviewing for a customer engineer role? Well, let's prompt on that. I'm going to go into my wrap up. I will still answer all the questions that come in. So if you purchase my interview course today, which I think would help anybody in this type of role, if you type in the code FAN, F-A-N in all caps, $100 discount today till 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. I think that will really, really help you. Let me prompt on these other items, and then again, I'll answer any questions that come in and we'll wrap up. Practiceinterviews.com. I do one-on-one coaching for practice interviews, one-on-one negotiation coaching. You can join our Slack group. There's tons of free resources. If you liked what we did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. I go live every single Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, and new videos, new content every other Tuesday, usually released around 12 p.m. Pacific time. I will not be going live next week, taking a vacation. So thanks so much for being here. I'm going to answer all the last questions and then sign off. Thank you. Thanks for all the great content. Received an offer for Product Ops L5 and MTV. Thanks to your videos. Negotiated the offer to $320 in year 1. I think that this is a very good offer for Product Ops, but I always, when I hear best and final, I try and push for a little bit more. But this is what I would expect into the low 3s. I think it's a very good offer, but if you can push back one more time, I would do it. But that's a good offer. Can you give any specific suggestion for GCA round for an account strategist role in Dublin? Yeah, GCA role, wear the hat of the role, because you could get a random question. You're not trying to solve that question. You're trying to solve that question through Google Ads and a Google Ads lens and a client-facing lens. It's my biggest recommendation. Secondarily, follow CFAS. Be a good anchor for L4, L5, hardware ops manager, MTV. L4 anchor. L4 I'm anchoring in the very high 2s. L5 I'm probably anchoring into the 340s, 350s, something like that. You can go higher on both those if you like. I don't think there's any challenge with anchoring in the low 3s for L4 and maybe up into the 360s, 370s. Those might be high anchors, but always default to going a little higher. So I can be confident that Google can make us whole through refresher grants. Yep. And merit increases and promo, you will be made whole. If you're performing, you'll be made whole. Thanks for the great content. Received an offer for product offs. Oh, okay. Thanks. Saw that one, Nick. Where to type that code, because on your website, there is no field. If you go on the home page, you go over to enroll now on the sales page, and you will get to the purchase page. And then if you type in FAN, it will come up. I tested it beforehand. If you have any challenges, any additional challenges, you can always use the chat feature on our website, but it should work. You just need to get to that specific purchase page. Thanks. Have a GCA and leadership and googliness round on Monday, back to back. Okay, so GCA, same. Leadership and googliness. Just remember, positive side of the coin, inclusivity, mentorship, bringing somebody in, like opposing views, creating positivity, and then negative, unethical, conflict. Be ready for both sides of the coin. It will lean behavioral, but I would expect at least one open-ended question. You're welcome. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to, we'll leave the light off for the end of it. It's fine. Sign on, it depends. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. You're welcome. That's L3. If you have 1.5 years of experience, you're in L3. Does total comp and levels take both sign-on bonus and performance bonus? Yeah, it's a little tricky there. I think the bonus numbers and levels just look funky. Just know what these bonuses are for these companies. You can find that data in Team Blind. But sometimes the bonus numbers are the one thing that shows up kind of funky in levels. And that could be because people are adding sign-on into the total bonus. But it's an unknown. I really don't know what they're doing to get the bonus numbers to not really align with what they should be. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. L5 BSA roll. I mean, I would be anchoring into the 350s, 360s, 370s. It's up to you. You can always go a little higher. You're welcome. Okay. Awesome. Thanks for buying it. I appreciate it. Definitely no hiring slowdown in Munich from what my recruiter told me. Currently L3 suite. I've not seen hiring slowdown, at least at Google. And that's the pulse I've had, but things can always change in a moment's notice. Thank you so much for being here. I love my community. We had a really, really robust day today. Good audience today. I'll be off next week. I'll be back in 2 weeks for another live. Thank you so much and have a great day.